So, back to sites. Let's talk about this very interesting, controversial feature of the new sites and how we can use it to our advantage. So, one of the new things that Google added to their sites program was a grid system. I wanted to look at how the grid system works and what are some of the limitations. This is really nice in that people who actually design websites for a living use grid systems. However, Google has a grid system set up and you can't really change it, so you have to work within their parameters. So what is this elusive grid system? Well, I have a site pulled up and I have some various things in my site already. And if you click on any of those things and you try to move them around, you'll notice those lines that show up. That's what I mean by the grid system. What these are columns that you can place things in. This is also associated with resizing. So if I hover and I try to place it in between, I can't. I can only place my information in those particular places. You'll also notice that if you resize it, you can't resize something just part way through the grid. Watch, I'm going to drop it right here. It's going to resize it so that it fits within that grid system. When you move things, when you make things taller, I'll show you that on the image, then it will just expand whatever section you have. Again, this is something that you want to think about is if you're very particular about your size, keep within those lines and kind of do some dividing in order to see how things fit. So here I have an image, and with this image I can also move it up and down so you can see how it gets a little bit taller. But the other thing that happens is Google remembers the aspect ratio. So if I'm making this image taller, it's not going to want me to have an ugly site with a stretched out picture. So it's going to crop it on the sides for me. So I have on the side, if I drag it out, I have to keep my proportions the same. This can get tricky with certain sizes of images and the grid system because my ideal size doesn't fit within the grid. So I'm going to have to do some compromising in order to actually figure out what is going to fit within the grid and also not cut my image off. And that has been the best I've been able to do so far. Again, I can move it if I want to move it. As you're using the grid system, you'll see it gives you some nice, oh, this is a third of the page. Oh, this is half of the page. Guidelines that show up as you overlap those particular places. Again, this is something that's really nice and actually used. However, it does limit you because it tells you what the grid looks like and you have no control over that. Here I have a video added, and underneath that I have a calendar added. And let's say I wanted those to be in the same content block. Now, I have the video already made at a certain size. So if I click on and drag my calendar up to that content block, it's going to say, oh, this additional thing is going to be added, but it can only be added in the extra space that's there. So if I drag that up there, you'll notice that it got smaller. It resized it so that it fit within the remaining columns that were left. It did not resize what was already there. It resized the new addition. And this is something that you need to think about when you are laying out your site. You need to have the sizes already pre-made if you don't want to have to tweak with things. So here I have this video. If I change the size of my video, make it a little smaller. That's cool, but it doesn't change the size of the calendar. The calendar stays whatever it dropped in as. Even when I drag it back down, it's going to be that new size, and I'm going to have to resize it if I want it to be what it was before. So that's the grid system. Again, it's kind of playing around and fussing with whatever it is that you have in there. Keep in mind the idea that things that are dragged down will either stay the size they were if they're small enough, or they will change sizes in order to fit whatever is left over. And this applies to things that are dragged between dividers. As you resize things in those grids, it's not going to let you make anything that's too big so that you overlap. It's going to resize those things for you according to those grids. While we're talking about organizing our site, I did want to mention one cool new feature that Google has added. If you look over in your sidebar, you can add in a divider. This is helpful because it helps make a very distinct difference between different horizontal rows that you have in your grid. And to add the divider, all you do is click on that divider and it adds it in. You can drag it, drag and drop between different sections. And if you click on it, you can always trash it if you do not want that. It sort of adds it as its own mini section in the middle. So that is working with the grid system and adding dividers in Google Sites.